Lambeau Field be the venue, Thursday night football be the event. Buckle up, Dolphins Nation. Buckle up, Packers Nation. This is Dolphins football, American Thanksgiving edition on Thursday night football. Packers Dolphins begins now on Dolphins Post Game right here on Sports for Beginners and streaming on the Ice and Behind the Benches. Let's go. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our American listeners out there. Welcome in the Dolphins Post Game Thursday night football edition, but really it feels like a triple hitter. And we're going to talk about all of the triple hitter games, including the main event, the Dolphins and the Packers, in just a little bit with our game breakdown kicking things off. But before we get to that, let's get you a look at the head coaches. The Miami Dolphins head coach, as you all know, Dolphins fans, is none other than Mike McDaniel. For the Green Bay Packers, it is Matt LaFleur, Matt LaFleur with the head coaching duties for the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field for this action. And boy, oh boy, was this ever going to be a good match. It's Jordan Love versus Tua Tagovailoa. As a 5-6 Miami Dolphins team is hoping to become 6-6 with their sixth victory coming on American Thanksgiving with a victory over the Green Bay Packers. It is not to be, but how did that happen? We'll get right into it momentarily. But on the other side, they come against a team who's looking to become 9-3 on the season with a current record of 8-3 coming into Thursday night football's game. So did they make it to 9-3? Yes, but how did they do it? The Green Bay Packers and the Miami Dolphins is the topic of conversation. To all the Green Bay Packers fans who may be listening into Dolphins postgame, I don't usually do this for the opponent. I usually do it for the Miami Dolphins fans. But in the spirit of Thanksgiving, because there was a trend going on throughout the beginning of the triple hitter games from game one to game two to the main event in the Packers against the Miami Dolphins, I'd like to be the first to wish you all a happy American Thanksgiving and also a happy Victory Friday. It's a Victory Friday for you guys as you beat the Miami Dolphins. How did you do it? Let's get right down to it and break it all down. Because, man, oh man, would I love to get into this game with you all. Let me get into this game and let's have some fun. It's American Thanksgiving in the U.S. and American Thanksgiving. Happy American Thanksgiving to all of our American listeners, wherever you may be tuning in to this program. I appreciate you all being here very, very much. It gets started with Jordan Love, quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. It gets started with him. A pass short right to Reed for a 3-yard touchdown. Jay Reed for a 3-yard touchdown. It's 7-0 with a pat from Bobby McManus, I believe, is the kicker for the Green Bay Packers. He kicks it up. The extra point is up and good. It is now 7-0 in favor of the Green Bay Packers. Next Packers drive. Jacobs, left guard for a 1-yard touchdown, and it is now with Bobby McManus making the kick. I do believe Bobby McManus is the kicker name for the Green Bay Packers. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. but he gets it up and good, and the Packers are up to an early 14-0 lead over the Miami Dolphins. So after one quarter of play, it's the Green Bay Packers 14, the Miami Dolphins 0 after one quarter of play. Second quarter of play, first quarter, half of the action in the first half. And it's Jason Sanders getting the Dolphins on the board with 3 from 33 yards of a field goal. He nails a 33-yard field goal. The Dolphins are on the board. It is 3 Miami Dolphins, Green Bay Packers, still 14. However, what was a 14-point lead for the Green Bay Packers becomes, thanks to that 33-yard field goal by Jason Sanders, a 11-point lead, with the Green Bay Packers trying to increase that lead as the second quarter goes on. And Jordan Love, what does he do? He makes a 12-yard pass to Jay Reed. Up with it is Bobby McManus with the extra point, and it is now 21-3 over the Green Bay Packers, leading the Miami Dolphins 21-3. But hold on, everybody, that ain't all we're gonna do. We're not gonna leave it at 18 points for the Green Bay Packers. No, 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 no. With just 3 seconds to go in the first half quarter of the second quarter of play, while the Green Bay Packers drive from the Miami Dolphins offensively, in the defensively, Miami Dolphins defense puts it to a fourth down. Bobby McManus says, "We're not leaving it D-handed into half. We're making a timeout here, and I'm going to kick a 24-yard field goal up and through the uprights." He does so, 24-yard field goal, up and good. Oh, excuse me, that's a 46-yard field goal in the second quarter of the first half game. It's a 46-yard field goal from 46 yards, up and good from him, and it is 24-3, with the Green Bay Packers still in the lead, but by a big margin, with Dolphins only having 3. They lead by 21 points. Hey, that's the score they had when they led by 18 points to the Miami Dolphins, 21 points. So the Dolphins down 21 points going into the second half of the third and now fourth and final quarters of play in this Thanksgiving showdown for the American Thanksgiving. Of course, happy American Thanksgiving to all of our American listeners who are tuning into this program. I mentioned Bobby McManus had a 24-yard field goal. So what does he do when his offense stands out and the defense of the Miami Dolphins comes to play in the second half? Well, he does this. He takes a 24-yard field goal, up and good, and nails it with only 7 minutes and 46 seconds left on the play clock, or rather the game clock of the action. Tua passes short to Devon Chain for 14 yards to get this game back a little bit closer, with the Dolphins now down 27-3. Of course, that number of 27-3 would mean the Dolphins would have to fight a 24-point lead and cut it. They would cut it. They would cut a 24-point lead from the Green Bay Packers with a 2-point conversion attempt to the Penguin, Jalen Waddle from Tua, and what would have been a 10-27 Miami Dolphins still trailing the Green Bay Packers 27-10 is now a Miami Dolphins 11, Green Bay Packers 27. So you put that together in the math, and you've got a 27-11 game, 11 for the Dolphins, 27 for the Packers, and that cuts the lead down pretty big, but not too big. 16 points now the Dolphins trail the Green Bay Packers, and that would be all for the third quarter of the second half. Fourth quarter and second half quarter of this entire game rides on these plays from a 33-yard field goal by Bobby McManus, who says, Hey, you can nail a 33-yard field goal, Jason Sanders. So can I. So he nails a 33-yard field goal with 5:06 left to go in the fourth quarter and keeps this lead in the Green Bay Packers' favor. It is now 30 Green Bay Packers to the 11 for the Miami Dolphins, which means it's now a 19-point lead for the Green Bay Packers in hopes of winning this game 30-11. But not so fast, says Tua and Tyreek Hill. We're going to make a 12-yard pass to each other, and we're also going to try and get a 2-point conversion. But this time, the defense knows Tua's going for 2 points, and it's incomplete. Raheem Mostert was the intended target, so the Dolphins' final scoring points would be a 17-point lead as they would go 17-30 losers to the Green Bay Packers. They would get a touchdown from Tyreek Hill and Tua in a 12-yard pass, but they would get no further than just 17 points, leading us with a final score win tally for the Green Bay Packers in 13 points to the Miami Dolphins. So the Miami Dolphins had 17, they trailed by 13 and lost by 13, but the Green Bay Packers had 30, so they were the better team in this game. Cap off this game breakdown with a look at how both teams did in terms of possession, turnovers, first downs, passing, all that jazz. A reminder, because this was a triple hitter, we will be talking about the 3 games that went on and get you ready for the Chiefs and, of course, their matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders, and look at just a few of the Sunday action games that will be interesting games to watch on Sunday, December 1st. Also got our game balls of the game. What's next for the Packers? What's next for the Dolphins? All of that still to come here on Dolphins Post Game. And I don't normally do this, but in the spirit of Thanksgiving, we're going to see if we have any victory speeches to give out from the Green Bay Packers after beating the Dolphins 30-17. All of that is still to come, but let's get in to the need and greedy. Let's get into the need and greedy and provide you the game stats of this Thanksgiving main event between the Packers and the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins. They had the ball for a tie possession of 33 minutes and 4 seconds. For the Green Bay Packers, they had it for about 26 minutes and 56 seconds. Miami scored 21 first downs. The Green Bay Packers scored 19 of those first downs, 11 of them being passing for the Green Bay Packers, and 20 of them being passing for the Miami Dolphins. One of these 21 first downs for the Miami Dolphins were rushing on the ground, and 7 of those 19 first downs for the Green Bay Packers were on the rushing ground. So they had 7 rushing first downs. The Green Bay Packers took 1 penalty on first down for their 19 first downs to the Miami Dolphins. So they had 1 penalty. And speaking of the penalties, they were all given, both teams were given at least, how many penalties were they given in this game? How many penalties were both teams given? The Miami Dolphins were given 10 out of 75 penalties they could have gotten, and for the Green Bay Packers, they were given 7 out of 44 penalties they could have been given. Miami Dolphins were able to convert 3 out of 5 times on fourth down efficiency. The Green Bay Packers never saw fourth down or never went for it on fourth down, so 0-0 is where they stand. However, on third down efficiency, the Green Bay Packers and the Miami Dolphins converted 4 times out of 14 times on third down efficiency. 11 times out of 5, the Green Bay Packers committed a conversion, but they were only able to convert 5 times. on third down efficiency out of the 11 tries. The Miami Dolphins return yards were a little bit insane in this one. 113 return yards, I should say. But the Green Bay Packers almost about as even as the Miami Dolphins in return yards. 73 return yards, having just two kickoffs for 73 yards and four kickoff yards for the Miami Dolphins to tally 108 kickoff yards. Touchdowns, the Dolphins, two touchdowns, all in the air, one to Tyreek Hill, and then, of course, one to the guy that got things started for us in Devon Achane for 14 yards. And then, of course, you've got Tyreek Hill for 12 yards. So two touchdowns, both in the air for the Miami Dolphins. The Green Bay Packers, on the other hand, scored three touchdowns with one on the ground and two in the air. No quarterback between the Green Bay Packers and the Miami Dolphins had a interception thrown in this game, so no defensive special team pick sixes or anything like that. But you know what did happen for the Dolphins? They had in just two punts 5 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry for two punts in their game. The Packers didn't see the punting at all, like they didn't see fourth down. So they were able to keep Miami on their toes and make sure that the defense didn't hold Green Bay to a fourth down. Dolphins turned the ball over once and only once, recovered a fumble two times, and lost a fumble once. They basically won two of those fumble recoveries and then just had an out of bounds fumble, which would count as a loss for a fumble. Take a look at how both teams did in the red zone. In the red zone, the Green Bay Packers were 3 conversions out of 5 chances they had. They converted 3 times on the conversion. The goal to go efficiency, they were able to convert just 2 times out of 3 tries. The Dolphins 2 tries and still no conversion for them. The red zone, they were able to convert just 2 times out of 4 chances for a total yards per rush of 2.8 to the Green Bay Packers 4.6, in which the Green Bay Packers had 25 rushes to the Miami Dolphins 14 rushes, leaving us with a total rushing yards 39 for the Miami Dolphins and 114 rushing yards for the Green Bay Packers. The QB of the Miami Dolphins got sacked 5 times for a loss of 29 yards. Meanwhile, Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers, as the quarterback of him, never took a single sack for a loss of yards, making an average 9.8 yards per pass. 21 out of 28 completion attempts for 21 passes complete for a total passing yards of 274 passing yards. Tua, on the other hand, had a 37 completed pass percentage with 46 completion attempts for a total yardage of 6.6 yards per attempt on passing, and the total yardage in just 65 plays of 5.8 yards per play. Miami Dolphins total yardage 375 total yards with 65 plays, 5.8 yards per play, 7.3 yards per play for the Green Bay Packers on just 388 total yards and 53 plays. It's all it took to get the 388 yards. All right, I think we covered everything on the game stats. So come on up. We've got our game balls of the game, and it's now time to take our first break of Dolphins Post Game for the Thursday night main event between the Green Bay Packers and the Miami Dolphins. The Green Bay Packers end up beating the Miami Dolphins. So coming right up, we've got the game balls of the game, setting you up for Chiefs and Raiders on Friday Friday, on this Friday, November 29th, 2024. We're setting you up for Chiefs and Raiders. Us getting a look at the action on Thursday before the main event between the Green Bay Packers and the Miami Dolphins. What's next for the Green Bay Packers? What's next for the Dolphins? All still to come when Dolphins Post Game American Thanksgiving Edition continues. Stick with us right here on the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners, the podcast.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Looking for conversations on books and more, as well as tutorials on using your favorite devices and applications? You've come to the right place. Join us weekly on Spicy Techie, where Ali and Sienna provide insightful conversations, as well as useful tips and tricks to help you along on your technological journey. To learn more, tune into the show and like the Spicy Techie Facebook page. Search for Spicy Techie.
The Green Bay Packers 30, the Miami Dolphins 17. Welcome back in the Dolphins Post Game American Thanksgiving Edition. Happy Thanksgiving, American listeners. Wherever you may be listening, Green Bay Packers Nation, I am happy to give you a Thanksgiving Friday edition of your Packers celebration against the Miami Dolphins. So, in the spirit of American Thanksgiving, I hope you're having a great American Thanksgiving. I am Thomas McGregor, and just before we get into the game balls of the game and take a look at what happened in this trend of home teams winning on American Thanksgiving and get you into the games that just went final before this main event, Thursday Night Football between the Packers and the Miami Dolphins. Let's hear from the Green Bay Packers victory speech coach and hear what they had to say following the 30-17 victory over the Miami Dolphins. Here is Coach Matt LaFleury and the locker room from the Green Bay Packers.
I'll tell you what. Give it up for everybody in this locker room, man. 2 games, 5 days. We handled our business, man. We handled our business. Total team effort. I got to give it up to our defense, man. Hold these guys. 14 carries, 39 yards on the ground. Hell yeah. 5 sacks. Hell yeah. And I'll tell you what. The biggest play, though, they had a second and goal on the 1 yard line. And we didn't flinch. We held their ass on a goal line stand. So give it up for the defense. A lot of guys balled out on offense. Our quarterback was 21 of 28. We had 25 carries for 114 yards. Jay Reed with 2 tugs. But I got one game ball. And this guy had some stuff go down in his personal life and was playing with a heavy heart today. And he kind of set us off, man, by recovering that fumble on the punt.
Yes, sir.
Where's Scoot at?
It meant a lot to me going out there tonight. I lost 2 of my partners earlier today, tragedy. But I still showed up because I love my teammates. I'm going to be here every day.
And we love you.
man. I'm proud of y'all boys, man. Let's keep stacking these days. Let's come in and get ready to go back to work. Pack on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, the joys of having a victory speech for the Green Bay Packers, and the joys of having a victory speech for any team in the NFL. With that being said, let's have a look at our game balls of the game coming up at just 3 minutes time. I do want to get into the action though from the Thursday main event. Of course, we got through the main event in Thursday Night Football between the Green Bay Packers and, of course, the Miami Dolphins. But there were main event after main event before that happened, including Detroit taking on the Chicago Bears in good old Michigan, Detroit. Good old Michigan, Detroit. How about them Lions? 23-20 victors over the Chicago Bears. And it was a game that was controversial because the Chicago Bears just didn't decide to play in the fourth quarter. They literally let the Lions come down to literally the last game tying thing of this ball game at 12:30 in the afternoon. I mean, tick tock, a penalty on first down and 10 to Caleb Williams, pass short right to Keaton Allen for 7 yards, for rather 6 yards, I should say. A penalty enforces conduct a -3 yards, enforced by Chicago, 2nd and 7. Caleb Williams, incomplete pass to the middle, no gain there. 25-yard reception on 3rd down and 7. First and 10. Caleb Williams gets sacked by the Detroit Lions. 14-yard plus on 2nd down and 15. 3rd down and 1. A 12-yard gain by DeAndre Swift, I believe his name is DeAndre Swift. D. Swift up the middle to the 50-yard line for 12 yards. Sack to Caleb Williams, 1st down and 10. We go to 2nd and 17. A 13-yard pass from Caleb Williams in a scramble up the middle for 13 yards. Excuse me, that is a scramble, not a pass. It is a scramble for 13 yards. Z. Smith was injured on the game. Z. Smith was injured during the play. It would be reported that Shelton will return to the game, but Smith would not be able to return to the game. Caleb Williams incomplete on a 3rd and 4. 4th and 4. It is a penalty. Pass short to DJ Moore. Pushed for obstruct at the Detroit 23-yard line for 21 yards. The penalty was D. Smith had returned to the game. Offensive pass interference, penalty 10 yards, enforced. It would be 4th and 14 for Caleb Williams to regain the ball with the Chicago Bears. They're at the Detroit 25-yard line. Offensive pass interference was the defensive pass interference was the penalty for Caleb Williams' incomplete pass to DJ Moore, I believe his name is DJ Moore. D. Moore gets a penalty. Defensive pass interference, 29 yards enforced for another penalty at 4th down and 14. There's 14 yards to go, so automatic first down for Caleb Williams. 1st and 10, incomplete up to the middle of DJ Moore, the intended target. 2nd and 10, penalty on the Detroit 25-yard line. Caleb Williams passes short to Kay Allen, and that is a penalty on Chicago's Jenkins. The illegal use of hands, 10 yards enforced. It'll be a 2nd and 20, and Caleb Williams sacked at the 41-yard line. And then here we go, the last play of the game. Tick, 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 tick. 6 seconds on the play clock, game clock. Caleb Williams, pass incomplete to the deep right his intended receiver was our Odie zone, and just when you thought you could get a fourth down going, the clock said game over. Definitely not a game the Chicago Bears are fans of, and definitely not a game the fan base of Chicago is a fan of. The fact that they didn't take a timeout with the clock running on Thursday afternoon at 12:30 Eastern Time. You didn't take a timeout. You could have won this game. You could have forced overtime, Chicago. Make them work for it next time with the Detroit Lions. Come on, make them work for it next time. Let's go. That was a bad game. Speaking of close games, that was a pretty close game with the Bears losing only by 3 points. Speaking of close games, how about this? A 7 point game with the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? They beat the New York Giants, going to 5-7, with the Giants going to 2-10 on the season into Week 14, 27-20. It's a 7 point game, and the Dallas Cowboys come up clutch, and they come up with a victory in Dallas. That game got started at literally 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm speaking the Dallas Cowboys came up clutch in this game. They were leading this game 27-10 in the third quarter going into the fourth quarter of action. And it wasn't until Drew Lock and G. Gano each nail a 47-yard field goal and scramble for 8 yards to make this game even as close as you think it's gonna get. It's gonna be very, very close. If I'm the New York Giants, I'm trying to go for two at this point with just 2 minutes and 18 seconds left on the game clock for a chance to force overtime against the Dallas Cowboys. I'm making the Cowboys work for it at this point, with it only being a 7 point game and you only gonna score 20 instead of a 27. I'm trying to force overtime here and win it in OT. I'm going to win it in OT if you're going to do that. You know what the fun thing about it is? At least it wasn't the timeout game that said the game clock will tell you when it's over. Game, set, and match. Lions over Bears. I mean, look at the final drive for the Dallas Cowboys. A kick from 65 yards, 1st and 10, you get a penalty. 1st and 5, another penalty, another 1st and 5, no gain. 2nd and 5, 3 yard gain for the Dallas Cowboys. 3rd and 2, 3 yard gain. 1st and 10, a rush, and that is just a kneel and another kneel, and the ball game is over. 2nd and 12, 1st and 10, and the ball game is over. The Dallas Cowboys have the game, and the only other time on the clock for the Dallas Cowboys came when it was literally make or break your game with trying to put up a W against the Dallas Cowboys. Got some interesting matchups coming for us, including the one we're going to get ready for as it is about 3 o'clock. We're going to get you ready for the Chiefs and the Raiders coming up in just a few minutes' time. But before that, let's get you into the game balls of the game. And you know what? We're going to do just 2 game balls of the game because I'm feeling really, really thankful for American Thanksgiving to have the Green Bay Packers take a W against the Miami Dolphins. But Dolphins Nation, let's be real here. The real issue for the Dolphins in that game, I think we all saw it in the first half of the first quarters, the first 2 quarters of the first half. Let's be all real here. I'm going to be as unbiased as I possibly can, but let's be real here. That first drive that ended up in a punt, that ended up being Green Bay Packers' next offensive drive because it slipped through a Dolphins punt returner's hands. It slipped through. You were about to go to your first game drive of the season, and it was let me just give Green Bay another drive. And this was when the Dolphins forced the Green Bay Packers to a 4th down and 14. Let, let me just remind you of how that went down, okay? Let me just remind you. Wheelan punts 45 yards. Wheelan is the punter for the Green Bay Packers. He punts a 45-yard kick to the Miami 13, and Washington muffs the catch. It's recovered by Rochelle at the Miami 9. And what do you know about that? It's Green Bay Packers ball again. Obviously, I don't think Washington meant to let the ball slip through his hands. Maybe I just think there's a little bit of a miscommunication there. Like, we didn't know it was, the ball was coming at him and he was supposed to receive the ball because it slipped right through his hands. And you cannot do that when your defense just gave you a chance to get the ball on offense. And it literally slipped right through Washington's hands. All he had to do was grab it. It slipped right through his hands, and he could not pick it up. But Rochelle picked it up at the Miami 9-yard line. And next thing we knew, defense, you thought you gave the Green Bay Packers their first punt of the game, and you did, but now you got to come back again and try to force another turnover on downs against the Green Bay Packers. You ain't going to get lucky the second time because that was when give it up to Jordan Love. He is the Green Bay Packers player of the game for me. Give it up for Jordan Love. That is when he scored the first touchdown of the game, knowing he got a second chance, and he passed short to Jay Reed for 3 yards. Touchdown, Packers. 6-0 Packers. And then Bobby McManus, literally 12 minutes left to go in the first quarter of play, and he gets an extra point up, and good. It's 7-0 Packers. You gotta give credit where credit is due. This guy, Jordan Love, had an absolute night against the Green Bay Packers. He had an absolute night against them, against the against the Miami Dolphins. He had an absolute night. Jordan Love, he had an absolute night with the Green Bay Packers, getting 274 yards, 28 completion attempts for 21 completed passes, averaging just 9.8 yards a carry, no picks, 2 touchdowns, no sacks for him in this game. That was a pretty great game by him in this game. And you got to give Josh Jacobs a lot of credit too, where credit is due too, for game ball of the game. He's my second Green Bay Packer of the game, player of the game, as a game ball of the game. I mean, Josh Jacobs, look at this. 19 attempts on the rushing game, 43 yards, and he's doing everything here. He even gets 4 targets, 4 reception for 74 yards, averaging just 18.5 yards a carry. His longest yard is 49. His longest yardage on the ground, 11 yards, 1 touchdown, averaged just 2.3 yards a carry. His longest yardage in terms of the total yards, 43 yards for him. But, I mean, he did really, really well, like Jordan Love did, minus the Miami Dolphins. But you know what? It's not all bad. It's not all bad. It's not all bad, Miami Dolphins. Because, you know what? Let's give some credit where credit is due. Tua Tagovailoa kept the Dolphins in this game, but unfortunately, we kind of show up when it's too little too late. He does get sacked, does not throw a single pick in this game, does throw 2 touchdowns, one to Tyreek Hill and one to Devon Achane, as he tried to get a 2-point conversion to Jalen Waddle, otherwise known as the Penguin for the Miami Dolphins. In just 37 completed passes, 46 attempts to make those 37 completed passes, he makes 365 yards for an average yards per carry of 7.9%. And you got to give credit where credit is due with Raheem Mostert. While he didn't get a 2-point conversion to keep this game as close as you could probably get this game, in the second time we did a 2-point conversion for the Miami Dolphins. While he didn't make a 2-point conversion when he was trying to get a score in this game, when it comes to him on the ground, he did quite well. Only 5 attempts on the ground, 3.8 yards a carry. His longest yardage was 12 yards. He finishes the night with 19 yards to his action, averaging just, again, 3.8 yards a carry on the ground, only receiving just three targets, two receptions from him, 15 yards, getting 7.5 yards a carry on the passing game for 15 yards, and his longest yards was about 13 yards on, well, no, sorry, it was about 13, it was about, what was his receiving yards? His receiving yards was about 14 yards. Yeah, his receiving yards was about 14 yards, averaged just 7.5 yards a carry, giving himself 3 targets, 2 receptions at 15 yards. Right, we're getting into kickoff time for the Chiefs and the Raiders. By now, the game has probably started, and we're into the second quarter of action. Let's get some keys to victory out of the way to begin the game and get you ready for the Chiefs and the Raiders. We're going to make time to talk about at least 3 or 4 matchups on the Sunday slate. I do want to remind you, though, that the Monday Night Football game is not a doubleheader game, but it does feature the Broncos and the Cleveland Browns. That game scheduled to tip off Monday, December 2nd at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. The quarterbacks are to be the topic of conversation. We'll get you into those games in just a little bit before our second and rather final break of Dolphins post game, before we just wrap it up with 30-second timeout to wrap it up with the Dolphins and Packers. His next games will keep you in tuned with the Chiefs and the Raiders. Let's get in the keys to victory before we take our second and final timeout, before we get to our 30-second timeout of the program. And that will be with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Raiders, the keys to victory here. I mean, we've seen it already here on the Thursday action that we recapped with our Week 13 recap this far of what's gone on so far. We've recapped it up to the point where we get ready for the Chiefs and the Raiders. 3 o'clock was the start time on the East Coast, and it features Patrick Mahomes taking on, of course, the Las Vegas Raiders is quarterback, and I believe it's Derek Carr for the Las Vegas Raiders. No, it'll be Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell and Patrick Mahomes will tee off at Arrowhead Field. Well, what am I expecting from these teams defensive wise? Well, obviously I'm expecting something that a lot of people in the NFL would be expecting, as well as many of us fans of the NFL would be expecting, and that's to have as less turnovers as we possibly can. I know some of us love the interceptions, the pick sixes, everything of that nature, but I think you really got to keep it tuned for the defense on an offensive perspective, knowing that the defense of teams are going to try to keep you from scoring first. If they're going to score first, and if they are going to score first, how are they going to score? Are they going to score by a field goal? Are they going to score with a touchdown? Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen in that game? But yeah, I don't want to see any defensive turnovers in this game. I would love to see a turnover on maybe a pick six touchdown by the Chiefs or even the Las Vegas Raiders. Offensively, though, the only turnovers I would not like to see from either teams, and these go for victories for either the Chiefs or the Raiders. Obviously, I would not like to see the Chiefs or the Raiders throw interceptions. maybe maybe we'll get like maybe one pick six or something like that. But I definitely want both quarterbacks to be on their best behavior. So, keep control of the ball. Let's see some offensive control of the ball. Try to keep the ball when you get a reception from your quarterback, whether that's Patrick Mahomes or Aiden O'Connell. I want to see, some good passing, and let's try to avoid those penalty markers. Let's try to avoid those penalty markers. Honestly, I have no idea why we get these penalties in this game, but we get them, and there's nothing you can do about them. I would love nothing more than to have a game where you don't have to worry about the penalty markers. Everybody's going everywhere. Things are going fine. Things are going right for one team. I would love to see the Dolphins and the Packers have that type of a game, but maybe we can catch it on American Thanksgiving with a Friday match with the Raiders and the Chiefs. So those are my three keys to victories. No penalties, less turnovers, and control and ball control. We've seen the NFL this season have some ball control issues with people with miscommunications and stuff like that. But if we could have a game where there's no chance whatsoever you get penalties for flags or anything like that, legal hands to the face, anything like that, whether it's illegal hands to the face, the holding, pass interference, any of those penalties, if you guys could limit those penalties, I think that game will go really, really well. All right, let's get into one of the games that we'll talk about for the Sunday slate, and then we'll cover the remaining Sunday games as we get into our final break of the program. But actually, let's take that final break of the program, the second and final break of the program for us with the Miami Dolphins and the Green Bay Packers. We have covered pretty much everything we could talk about for the Miami Dolphins and the Green Bay Packers. And Green Bay Packers fans, the Dolphins fans might not feel happy that I did the Green Bay Packers victory speech for you, but I did that because it's not something we would normally do on Dolphins Post Game. We usually do it for the Dolphins team, but because it was Thanksgiving on Americans for the American Thanksgiving holiday in the American state of the United States of America, I thought it only fair to bring a Victory Friday victory speech from the head coach of the Green Bay Packers in Matt LaFleur to hear what he had to say following the 30-17 loss. And we even got some game balls from the head coach. So if you missed that, please do not hesitate to go back into our timestamps and click the timestamp where we had the victory speech from the Green Bay Packers. All credit going to the Green Bay Packers and of course the NFL. The one game I think we really have to talk about is the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers. So just before we take that final time out, let's talk about the Bills and the Niners, okay? We said when it was Chiefs week against the Bills that it was the game to behold. And why do I say the game to behold? Well, the game to behold was basically a matter of, okay, if things go this way for the Chiefs, they get into the playoffs and they clinch the AFC conference. And of course, they get their division title for their division of their AFC division standings, which means the division title with the Kansas City Chiefs is officially locked, and they not only claim the AFC West division title, but they also claim the AFC East conference. Basically, the AFC conference would be won by the Kansas City Chiefs and they'd be in the playoffs. Enough said. Enough said there. And they were undefeated. They were the only remaining NFL team undefeated this season against the Green Bay against every team in the NFL. That was until the Bills and the Chiefs met, to which the Bills would, if they won the game against the Chiefs, and they did win against the Chiefs, but even if they won against the Chiefs and they also had a chance at clinching a playoff spot, not only would they close the door to get a division title for the 5th straight time in the Sean McDermott and Josh Allen era, with those guys as the head coach and quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, the blue, red, and white. But they would also, if things went their way and not the Kansas City Chiefs' way, they also would have had a chance to clinch the AFC conference as well. Now, they have a chance to clinch the AFC East 5th division title for them in the Sean McDermott, Josh Allen era against the 49ers on Sunday Night Football at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. But can they pull it off, or do they need another week to win the AFC East division title? They can do it against the 49ers, but can they pull it off against the 49ers? Will the Chiefs already have the AFC East Conference or even their division of the AFC West clinched before the Bills get their AFC East division title? I'm sure we'll find out all of that action and answers before the Bills, Niners, and even after the Chiefs and the Raiders game is up, as that game just got started at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll send you off to the Chiefs and the Raiders momentarily here on the ice and behind the benches and sports for beginners. But we still have some things to cover here. And let's get ready to take our second and final timeout. So the Niners and the Bills should be a classic match in the snowy area of Highmark Stadium in Buffalo, New York. What is that old saying, Bills Mafias fans, if you're tuning into this program? Oh yeah, when it's too cold for our opponent, we are hard enough to be in the snow. And where would you rather be than right here, right now? Maybe I'll put in a little Bills victory speech, because by the time you're probably listening to it, all of those games have probably gone on, and American Thanksgiving is probably in the books right now. Let's take our second time out of the program, our second and final time out at Dolphins Post Game for Green Bay Packers and the Miami Dolphins. What's next for the Packers? What's next for the Miami Dolphins? Still to come in just a few minutes' time. I've got some player of the game things to bring out and my thoughts on this game. But let's take our second and final time out at Dolphins Post Game and get ready to finish off the program. Coming up next on the ice and behind the benches and sports for beginners. Dolphins football continues after this. Stick with us. The Sunday slate of football action features quite a number of games, including the game on Sunday Night Football between the Bills and the 49ers. Welcome back in the Dolphins post game. Dolphins Nation, an L in this game on American Thanksgiving, Thursday night main event between the Green Bay Packers. But you know what? After Sunday's action wraps up, you get ready for the next team of action. Let's find out how our Sunday action slate wraps up. We already talked about the Buffalo Bills. We got note about the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns. We're going to send you off to the Chiefs and the Raiders game momentarily in just 30 seconds from now. Let's find out where the rest of the Sunday action, including the Niners and the Bills, are going. And it starts with the Atlanta Falcons. We'll have an Atlanta Falcon match between the Los Angeles Chargers. Note the start time of that game. That's going to be a fun one to look at. That is going to be a fun one to look at. It's a 1 o'clock start game. We also have in the 1 o'clock slate games, we have the Steelers taking on the Cincinnati Bengals at 1 o'clock in Paycor Stadium. We have the Jaguars taking on the Houston Texans. That's going to be a 1 o'clock fun game to play. It's the Houston Texans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Patriots are playing host to the Indianapolis Colts, and they are getting ready for their bye week, hoping to have a victory going into the bye week at 1 o'clock Eastern as they take on the Indianapolis Colts. The Minnesota Vikings host the Arizona Cardinals, and Kyler Murray That game going to be fun to get to as well. That game starts for, 1 o'clock Eastern as well. And we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Carolina Panthers. Still a lot more of action to get through. That game, of course, will kick things off at 4:05 p.m. Eastern Time. So there's a lot of games to go on, including the Patriots, the Indianapolis Colts. The Jets are against the Seahawks. That will be a fun game to play for the Seahawks. The Titans take on the Commanders. The Saints and the Eagles take on the Baltimore Ravens and the LA Rams. The target of conversation for the Buffalo Bills in next week, week number 14 of this 18-week season. We are getting down to the wire, ladies and gentlemen. We are 13 weeks in on an 18-week season. So if you do the math right, we are now 13 weeks complete, and now it is 5 weeks. We have 5 weeks left of regular season NFL football before the postseason begins. All right, real quick before we get into our 30-second timeout and get ready to send you off to Chiefs and Raiders with what's next for the Bills, what's next for the Dolphins, and what's next for the Packers. If I could describe this game in one word or one sentence for you, I would say it was definitely an entertaining, fun game against the Green Bay Packers, for the Green Bay Packers side of things against the Miami Dolphins. But it was one of those games you just kind of said, let me watch like the first 5 minutes of the game, and then I'm going to turn it off for the Miami Dolphins. Maybe I'll just turn off the game, or maybe I'll sit through a game that sounds like it's going to be fun, but ends up being fun for the other team and just terrible for my team. And the Dolphins, give them credit, Dolphins Nation. It's not like they didn't try to win this game. They did pull out some numbers in this game. They did pull out some numbers, but ultimately, as you were probably telling me, ultimately, Thomas, we lost this game 30-17. Our season is over, isn't it? And yes, it certainly looks like our season is over, but I don't believe that for a second, okay? I think the Dolphins have a chance at making the postseason. I really do. I really do think we have a shot. I think we still have a shot at making the postseason. You guys can tell me the season's over, but I think we have a shot. We're still second in the division for the AFC title. But yes, I know it seems bad, but we have a shot. We have a chance at winning something in this game. We have a chance of winning something, trying to make postseason action. Chances of that happening, though, are very, very slim. There's only 5 weeks left of football to play. Well, the clock is dwindling. The clock is ticking on the Dolphins season and a bunch of other team seasons. Half of these teams seem to be eliminated already, and we'll get to the elimination teams probably on another edition of Dolphins Post Game. Who knows? By then we'll probably know who else is eliminated from the AFC East. All right, let's take that 30-second timeout of Dolphins post game and get you into what's next for the Packers, what's next for the Dolphins as we approach the 14th week of the NFL season. And this, of course, will also mark as the starting point for another Sunday edition, or rather this Sunday, by the time you're listening to it, as it is Friday, December 6th, 2024. At the time of us recording this, of course, we were recording this on Thursday of the American Thanksgiving tradition. Like I said, by the time you're listening to this, it'll probably be already Thanksgiving in the books, and the games are probably already in the books. We're sending you off to Chiefs and the Raiders, though. Coming up next, we've got the next games for the Packers, next games for the Dolphins, all of that coming up when Dolphins postgame continues in 30 seconds. We're sending you off to Chiefs and Raiders next on Dolphins postgame. Chiefs Raiders will get you to that game next with what's next for the Dolphins, what's next for the Packers, and of course the attendance record and the referee for this matchup in the snowy tundra of Green Bay and Lambeau Field. You're listening to Dolphins football on the ice and behind the benches and sports for beginners. We'll be back with the wraparound. What's next for the Packers? What's next for the Dolphins? Next when we send you off. The Chiefs and the Raiders coming right up. The Chiefs and Raiders coming right up on Dolphins Post Game. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout-outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down. Nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Chiefs and the Raiders game underway on a Friday night of American Thanksgiving. Of course, American Thanksgiving might be over by the time you're listening to this, and you know what? So is Week 14 becoming a starting point. So why don't we look at where the Dolphins and the Packers are headed next week in week number 14 of the season? Let's start with the Green Bay Packers, now 9-3 on the season. Looks like it's a short week for them because looks like they'll be on Thursday Night Football's action against the Detroit Lions for week number 14. That game scheduled to go at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday Night Football, December 5th, 2024. So, of course, that was last night as we're recording this for December 6th, Friday, December 6th, 2024. But, of course, that was the beginning match. They'll finish off another Sunday Night Football edition on week number 15 with the Seattle Seahawks at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a Monday Night Football at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 8:15 to be exact on the East Coast, against the New Orleans Saints. Their second meeting, I believe. Their only meeting of the season with the New Orleans Saints. Their only meeting with the New Orleans Saints. They'll face the New Orleans Saints when their only meeting on week 16. And they'll wrap things up with the Minnesota Vikings before coming back to face the Chicago Bears, in which they beat the Chicago Bears 20-19 back on week 11 of the NFL season. That game time still to be determined, but I'm sure by now we have those game times to be determined. And speaking of game times to be determined, while they face the Jets this week, they'll have to wait 3 more games before facing the Jets one final time this season. Those include 1 o'clock matchups against the Houston Texans on week number 15 of the season. So week number 15, just like this week, week number 14 of the season, games start at 1 o'clock with the New York Jets at 1 o'clock and the Houston Texans at 1 o'clock next week, week number 15. Then it's a late afternoon start with the 49ers and the season home finale of Hard Rock Stadium as they'll host the 49ers of San Francisco at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time. Catch all 3 of these games on CBS, week 14 this week, week 15 next week, and then see it on CBS at 4:25 with the Niners and the Dolphins at Hard Rock Stadium on CBS. That's the other game, the only other game on CBS for the Miami Dolphins as of right now. They'll have a Sunday Night Football match against the Cleveland Browns at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time on December 29th. And then it's time for the finale, the grand finale of the road series with the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. Closing out the season against each other. That could be a fun match to see. we've just about reached the end point of Dolphins postgame for Thursday Night Football's main event special between the Green Bay Packers and, of course, the Miami Dolphins. And so, yeah, we've reached the end point of the program, but we can't leave Dolphins postgame without reminding you that the next Dolphins postgame, of course, will be with the New York Jets. And you can bet we're going to be talking about the Jets on week 18 on January 5th, maybe a day after that game does go final. We'll see what the plan is. You will have it right here on the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners. Our next matchup, of course, will be the Jets' first of two matchups against the Dolphins, and it'll be the 14th week of the season. So that'll be this Sunday's match. I can't wait to get into that one being recapped. Hopefully, it'll be a much better one with another 14th week recap of the season. We'll see what happens there with the 14th week of the season being with the Dolphins and the New York Jets. We'll see what happens there. But hopefully, you all had a great American Thanksgiving, and I hope you all have a great happy holidays here as we finish off the program. Our attendance record from Thursday, November. Of course, we had this game on Thursday, November 28th as part of a triple hitter, and the attendance record for the Green Bay Packers beating the Miami Dolphins in the 13th week of the season as part of a triple hitter. 77,599 fans in attendance. So 77,599 fans in attendance at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. The referee, of course, Sean Smith. With all of that out of the way, that is the end of Dolphins postgame, the Thanksgiving special for American Thanksgiving. For all those listening in America, happy Thanksgiving for the American holiday. About time to send you off to the Chiefs and the Raiders. Hopefully that game hasn't gone final by the time you're listening to this. But of course, it's probably gone final by the time you're listening to all of this Week 13 recap. So, Dolphins Nation, until we meet again on Sunday when the Jets and the Dolphins take on each other, I am wishing you all a happy American Thanksgiving, a happy holidays if you are celebrating any of the holiday traditions. And I invite you to enjoy your holidays and have a peaceful yet joyful week. NFL season, just like the year 2024, this year being 2024, next year being 2025, is almost over. But the NFL season, the regular season, is almost over. The postseason is just getting started. And sooner or later, we'll be getting ready to get back at it again to say happy Thanksgiving for the Americans and happy Thanksgiving for the Canadians and all that jazz. Will come back up again on the NFL schedule. All of that will come back up again as we roll on with a new NFL season for the 2025 season, rolling on to the 2026 NFL season. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's finish one season at a time. We are closing down on 2024, and the 18th week season is just around the corner. But first, we got to get through week 14, 15, and 16, and 17. Once we get to 17, we know it's about time for the finale of the regular season and the 2024 NFL regular season. Until we meet again for the New York Jets, Miami Dolphins fans, fins up, let's go Fins, and let's hope for another victory Sunday in favor of the Miami Dolphins over the New York Jets. Let's get a club dub before 2024 ends. But couragely, and I would like to encouragely invite you to join us for the season 3 finale of Sports for Beginners with Scott McGregor. I may tune into it as well. I might actually be on it and talk about On the Ice and Behind the Benches is Christmas break for the second season as we try to end the second season on a high note for the hockey team. But with that being said, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for being here and enjoying us. American Thanksgiving. Green Bay Packers win it 30-17. over the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins' next opponent is the New York Jets. The Thursday night opponent for the Green Bay Packers this week is the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers fans, enjoy your week. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you all on the Week 14th recap of Dolphins Post Game, in which we'll be talking about the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. Will the Miami Dolphins pull off a victory against the Jets? I hope they do, Dolphins Nation. My name is Thomas McGregor, and this has been another edition of Dolphins Post Game, Thanksgiving edition for the Americans. Happy American Thanksgiving to those of you who are still celebrating that American Thanksgiving holiday. My name is Thomas McGregor, and until we meet again, Dolphins Nation, fins up, closing message, take us out of here. I'll see you, Dolphins Nation, Sunday after Jets and Dolphins go final. Tuning into this, and the Chiefs and the Raiders game is still on. Happy American Thanksgiving to those guys, and enjoy the football. I am out until Jets and Dolphins game. Closing message, as I said. Take us out. I'm out. Peace. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginners podcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.